Hi, guys. Welcome to another episode of the Pivotal Show. I'm Farrukh Ahmed. I'm a productivity and optimization coach, and I love to talk about how people can maximize their potential and make the best of what they're supposed to be.
Hey everyone, my name is Zohare, and I'm an entrepreneur. I run a couple of businesses in Dubai. I'm starting a new venture. I'm about to announce it very soon. I'm very excited about that. And quick shout out to Farrukh and Abe, for making this thing happen.
Hello, everybody. This is Abe. I am the corporate venture guy, I guess, now by now. We've evolved over the last 3 months. I've worked both corporate and done many startups as a serial entrepreneur. Which brings me back to why are we here today? And how we started, actually. We started off of, I think all of us started off of our couches, if I don't remember, right? Like everybody hiding in a corner in a room during the pandemic. And we talked about our businesses and we talked about things that we can do. And, it was, I never expected that, now throughout the whole season of, I know we've had wonderful guests showing up that actually matured into a full-blown show. And this is something that I know all of us share and enjoy doing. It's something that definitely took our minds off of that whole lockdown pandemic where, people started panicking. And 6 months now into the pandemic, I can tell you that I can't say that it's back to normal. I think this is a new normal. And this is something that people are beginning to learn to live with, which is great. Shows, how resilient people are and how we are talking about change and how people pivoted, either to add more features or to really to survive. And I really want to open this discussion up to to you guys as well. I know we don't have a guest today, but we're going to be talking with among each other to talk more what happened in 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting actually because when we, I think was it Farrukh, you came and you said, do you guys think it's a good idea? I don't even remember what you said. You said something like, I don't even think you had this in your mind. I think you just kind of said, you guys want to just get on a Zoom call and just talk about what's happening and maybe do a podcast.
I was just thinking about what everybody's going through and I was like, I just wanted to put it in perspective. So I just, because we keep on talking on these kind of things on and off. So I thought, just let's get together on a call and then let's see what we can talk about and maybe then put it out there for others to, interact with it and figure things out. And then the whole discussion evolved into developing a show around it. We came up with a name. So here you came up with that, trends reference. Pivot.
Yeah, pivot. Yeah, it was a funny start because I think the whole idea was just kind of talk about what's happening now, but the context of it just kind of emerged. I think after the first time we spoke, we focused so much on the crisis, then kind of a theme and a whole sort of concept kind of came out of that. It just seemed too difficult to ignore. And so I think, for me personally, I think it's been really insightful because just kind of looking at the kind of people we've had, the kind of things we've talked about, it's been really interesting. And then, of course, getting to spend time with you guys, obviously, this is the best way we could do it then. We were all in lockdown. We couldn't really hang out, group hug. But no.
I agree. You know what? It's amazing how, I don't know about you guys, but I actually got a lot closer to a lot of people, either in my past or met, I know we've worked very briefly together, on a couple of mentorship sessions here and there, but we didn't know each other very well. So now it's kind of blossomed into some a serious, not work but fun.
He's getting misty-eyed now.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? What also I think there's a from my side, I've learned something majorly is pessimists will be always pessimists and optimists will be always optimists. And I know we've had two sides of the spectrum on the show, and in the beginning, yes, it was a whole new world kind of thing, and there was a lot more people on the pessimist side. But then things progressed, and I think people came back to their comfort zone ish. Not there yet, but it's amazing how like people will tell you, oh, the economy is not going to bounce back to 2023.
So much skepticism.
Yeah, like, you know what I mean? Well, now I'm talking to GM saying, we're almost at 80 and 90% of our business before COVID. So I don't like that panic mode, really did put something within people, but I think I love how people stuck their guns and just stayed true to themselves. And
the resilience was very evident. In fact, I think the way that I feel like it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Sometimes you kind of analyze something so much that in the process of kind of worrying about it, you end up doing something to expedite the resolution. And in some cases, you don't do anything because you're waiting for things to happen. And I completely agree with you, like on that whole pessimism and optimism thing, that because I think that deep down in their roots, people who are trying to push forward, no matter what kind of adversity they're faced with, whether it's a global pandemic or personal financial crises, you're trying to work through it. And that's just, I think that, like we talked about it in one of the episodes as well, about like having a growth mindset and how you're basically just kind of hacking through the obstacles because you don't necessarily know what your destination is, but you know that you need to get away from where you are right now. It needs to be in a positive and a progressive way.
I agree.
And it's interesting actually, because when you think about, so, I mean, if we do a quick wrap up of like, the topics that we've covered during this, these past few months, and we still have, by the way, so much to look forward to ahead, which, I'm looking forward to kind of talking about later on, but
coming up in season 2.
Grab your pens, ladies and gentlemen. We talked about the crisis as a thing in the now and trying to sort of make sense of it. The chaos. It was really mad. People are losing jobs. I think the day we shot that episode was just a day or two after maybe Kareem had let go of a number of people. Then we touched on culture and how important having good culture in an organization is when you're faced with this kind of a problem. And I think we went from talking about the crisis and then using that as a way to kind of talk about how crisis can lead to pivots. And so it's not just COVID crisis and then a pivot as a result of that, but just as an example, because it was so relevant to everyone's life that everyone could suddenly relate to something. And then also the idea of how a pivot emerges from any kind of a crisis. And then having, a strong team, people who believe in a shared vision, being able to kind of walk down the path of adversity together, which then led us to purpose, and how having a shared sense of purpose and, a clear path of where you're going and how you want to get there. And it doesn't necessarily have to be motivated by the things that you're doing, like money or a job or career, but maybe you're doing it for your kids, maybe you're doing it for your loved ones somewhere else, maybe you're doing it for personal ambition or whatever. And then Abe, you got us our first guest, Rasha. She was so much fun to talk to. We talked about
she was
burn money and mismanagement of resources, and how you look over your shoulder when shit's hitting the fan, and you're like, well, should have thought about that extra basket of fruit that I've been getting all these days.
Sure, exactly. It's just and she brought up a lot of great points, because she did talk about managing the burn, the burn of cash, because especially with the pandemic, a lot of businesses, in the beginning, yes, it was, it still is tough, but people were seeing zero business, and while they had to still pay their normal payables, from salaries to rent, and I know there was a lot of government and there was a lot of stimulus packages, but still, that would not cover everything. So we really had to talk about the burn and how much money people were going through. So and it was I think it was very insightful. Rasha comes from a very experienced field in that. So we had a very interesting conversations over 2 episodes, I think.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
2 episodes. We had to break them up. I think that's when we also realized that we can't block everything to a 40-minute Zoom call, so we're gonna have to like divide it for audiences. Sorry, Farrukh.
Yeah, that's. I agree.
No, but I think
100%.
in a way that turned out fine, because if we would have restricted ourselves to a 40-minute episode, we would have practically missed out on a lot of things and a lot of good
Yeah.
stuff that we actually talked about.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
It's true,
yeah.
100%.
In
I find that
retrospect, I think that
the
was
second recording probably had better stuff in it sometimes.
yeah.
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 So sneak preview.
Yeah.
Second recording's
Yeah.
always better.
Season 2 is going to be better.
Season 2, episode 2s of everything is much better.
Wait, are we doing season 2?
Yeah. Yes, we are. Definitely.
Oh no.
Well, we'll find out later. But and then I think from Russia, she brought up a lot of great points, which brought us into our next topic, which was
Advisors.
Zohare really brought in a great guest, Ali, who talked about finding the proper advisors and what to look for and what to not to look for. And Ali brought a lot of his wisdom, and now, as Ali also works with a lot of startups right now these days with Microsoft and stuff. So he did a great job describing and, to really pinpoint what things that we need to look for in an advisor, because a lot of people, they have like 100 advisors, and I'm like, that's, you need just to pick a couple, 4 or 5 that actually help you move the needle.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned as well, he's at that time we were still pretty early in our own relationship as in that capacity. I mean, we'd known each other a couple of years, and he had been advising me over the years. So, but in this new venture, he's lead advisor, and we're so far ahead now since that time. We're talking to our early pre-seed investors. We actually have a very strong potential opportunity, and he's helping structuring the whole thing. So I think what I realized with that relationship, and as a result of this episode, was that it's kind of like we knew it, but we kind of also found more value as a result of that, because it unlocked a lot of thinking about why you need to have good people who don't necessarily want to take something from you, but want to see you succeed. And it's tough to find people like that. Farrukh, you talked about like some people who, you had, and it's tough. Advisors are important, but they're hard to get, good ones.
Yeah.
And people, like you said, people have dozens of them, but then, I mean, what's the point, right? Like, it's quality and over quantity.
Yeah, either they have dozens or they stick to just one and believe the advisor to be know-it-all kind of person. None of it is good. You need to have, of course, advisors are only effective if they know what they're talking about. So if somebody pretends to be an advisor for everything, well, that's going to take you down.
Yeah, and I mean, it can help you it can make you lead you to bad decisions, but I think also I get a very kind of a tunnel vision or a myopic sort of perspective on things, right? And I think that was actually a very interesting episode to have come before the next one, which we did with Amar on vultures in the scene, and people who are trying to kind of take away from you and maybe don't have your best interests at heart, whether it's service providers or people who are in your business or even advisors.
Or advisors, exactly. I was going to say advisors. I think it was a very nice jump from what to look for an advisor, and then Amar brought in what to not look for, what to avoid, which was, very relevant. And I see that a lot, especially with startups and young startups, because, just because this person has this position in a multinational, they take everything he or she says to the point, and I'm like, that's not the way.
And Amar is doing pretty well for his startup, Final Rentals, and he's just expanded. He's planning to go expand in more countries. And he shared some really good stories about other people, pulling him down.
I really like Ammar. Ammar is exactly your typical entrepreneur who went through the struggles, and now he's learned. You know what I mean?
And the best thing is he wants to share his learnings.
Yes, and fantastic. This is something that I personally want. I could have had a show on my own with vultures, but I wanted to bring somebody to that would resonate as well what I went through, which was great. And Ammar was like bang on of a lot of the stuff that happened with me personally as well. So it's good to have that. Good to look for things that are the differentiator between the advisors and the non-advisors.
I'm guessing you've seen your fair share anyway because of the work with the startups and startup bootcamp. I mean, people coming and going into the machine. What is that like? I mean, let's talk about that for a minute. Like, I mean, when you're sitting in the ecosystem and you're working with a handful of businesses, and your role is to help make sure that they are able to take the best advice, not even just get it from you, because you're providing them with the structure anyway. But how do you protect them from that? How do you think about like?
Well, see, it goes back to the entrepreneur, right? So it depends on what's his capacity to take feedback, and depends on the capacity as well on how relevant the mentor is to the topic or the advisor to the topic. You know what I mean? Like I always suggested the startups, at least, even non-startups, to look for an advisor that's an expert in their domain and not like okay, sometimes when you're trying to start something, yes, a full-rounded entrepreneur can be a good advisor to a startup advisor. But like, let's say, a person who's starting a company, who's in his late 30s, early 40s, they've worked for 15 years of their life. So but they've been niched up in a thing they do. Like they're good at delivering a product, but they might not be good at the legal stuff or the financial stuff. And that's why you go out and find a mentor or an advisor that is a domain expert in that region. You know what I mean? So that's, you know what I mean? That, having, people, the CEOs of very successful companies is a great, maybe coach, but not a mentor kind of thing. But in certain domain experts and features, I would, look for somebody that is an expert in that region. And it's really tough, and a good founder sometimes can come and tell me, listen, Abe, I'm looking for somebody that is an expert in something so specific. That's when you know that they're that mature now. So
yeah, they figured out the stuff they really need help with.
Exactly. It's not like I want a finance guy. I want somebody that is good at writing convertible notes or writing safe notes, or you know what I mean, like talk about debt for equity or like very, very niche topics, right? So that's how I've been seeing it right lately.
I think and just going back to the flow, I think we got lucky because just after the vultures, I think one of the things that I really kind of got out of the session with Ammar also is that there's a big burden on the founder when they've made bad decisions, or if they've gotten people to guide them and advise them in the wrong way. It can really stress you out a lot, when you go from like advisors and people who kind of sap away from you, and that can take a toll on your mental well-being. And I know that that's a topic that is very close to Farrukh's heart, and I think what Lara talked about, I mean, and so deep, really just kind of took us down a journey, help us understand what was it, the subconscious mind is a
Lara did present some very valid and points that people basically ignore, talking about subconscious mind and how it impacts you. But then the subconscious mind cannot work in isolation until you give it a direction with your conscious mind. So everything has to line up, it's kind of a line of sight flight, so to speak, so, and that's like something that I really, really enjoy talking about. And that's what I do as well, myself with other people. So that's exactly when you have to figure out where you're going, what's your direction, set your compass right, always stick towards your North Star, and
that's so tough though, like, I mean, how do you keep doing that? Like, I mean, I think about this a lot, right?
Yeah.
You have to get your positive energy and your positive vibe from somewhere in order to be able to keep yourself. And you need to be conscious and have so much emotional intelligence to know where I am in my state and how I can keep myself stable so that others who depend on me are also, it's so complicated.
No, that is a given quality, I would say, in leaders and entrepreneurs and, people who manage a business or people generally, so that has to be there. I mean, that is one of the key things that makes you successful as a leader. But yes, it's not in isolation. You have to manage the environment around you. I always say that, when you manage the environment around you, you're able to focus in a better way towards your North Star. So that comes in terms of your productivity, in terms of your priorities. You have to optimize your operations, the way you work. In fact, your mind, your thinking process as well. So you got to
Yeah.
optimize that as well. So, so while we are here talking about different things on the show, you cannot be distracted by other stuff that's going on around you. So that's the only way that we can record effectively. So we have to do that in every aspect of life, especially when you're responsible for running a business.
And
So
I think there was another thing that really I actually learned a lot from Laura as well, and like stress, because all of us have it running in the back of our minds, and I think the stress level exactly in COVID was at a much higher level.
oh yes,
Even
Unprecedented. I don't think anyone's ever understood.
Exactly.
I mean, maybe personal grief if you lose someone, I guess, but this is
yeah, exactly. And not only that, it just also keep in mind, with the pivot itself, like I know this is the pivotal show, there is a lot of stress and a lot of thinking back. So, you know what I mean? Like people are like, I'm doing okay now. Why should I pivot? Or I need to pivot because of this. So, when you start asking all these questions as well, it really adds to your mental stress. And I think, I think she addressed a couple of topics that are really, really, resonated with me, especially, facing things face forward.
Yeah, but I think to add to that, I think for in COVID times, the most difficult thing for leaders was how to keep their business afloat while also trying to manage their employees. The companies were letting go of employees left, right, and center. We also talked about companies exploring other talents of the employees, trying to make them pivot within the organization to different kind of roles, make the best of them, try to retain them. So it is a bit too much, when we talk about COVID specifically, and we don't have any end in sight right now. We don't know when it's going to end, and this has become a new normal. People are now, I think, 6 months into this crisis, people are actually thinking from this perspective onto their future operations as well.
Yeah. They're realigning their goals, I guess. So we'll see what happens.
I think it's also, remember that you touched on this just now, Farrukh, like about no end in sight. I mean, I would say that we're probably in a much better place now. I mean, I'm going out. I don't wear gloves anymore. I'm super careful. Every time I've understood the things that I need to do. I don't want to be.
No, from that point of view, dude, I went to the mall yesterday, and it didn't seem that Corona existed at all. With the kind
That's
of
the thing, though, right?
I think, there.
Like I was just saying to my wife this morning, so we got a dog during this time as well, and so we take him for a walk. We take both our son and the dog for a walk in the morning, and I've started noticing in the last few days, in fact, that people, under the sort of the excuse of going out for exercise, which is the only legitimate reason you don't have to wear a mask, and even then you have to wear a mask until you actually start your exercise.
True.
People will be walking in the mall, through the mall, out to the park area, and they wouldn't even have a mask on their body. Like they might have it in their pockets, but it's not visible. It's just this kind of assumption that, and I think the problem that people are not realizing is that you can't become relaxed about this because other people are still going through it. And I think that kind of goes back to the fact that there's no end in sight, is because I think people are so resistant or resilient. And I think there's a good thing in here where people want to kind of bounce back and get back into some kind of new normal. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that you forget the problem that's there and you ignore the risk to other people as well, because it's important. Wearing a mask is not your own safety as much as it is for the people that you're in the proximity of. And that, it's just those little things. And I feel like you would keep talking about this, Farrukh. I think trying to kind of bring us back to, we would talk about like impact of professional, but you'd always be like, the impact on personal. And I feel like the two have kind of started to separate again, where people are not thinking about the way that they kind of overlap, and they actually do spill over and really need to connect because, you can't separate your mental well-being at work and your mental well-being at home. They're
True.
sharing the
Yeah.
same headspace, so
Yeah.
it's a really tricky space.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Which brings us actually to the next topic, which Laura kind of built the groundwork for, which is when you pivot, sometimes you need to bring in a new co-founder or partner, and we brought in Yusuf,
Yusuf Wadi.
who him and I have known each other for years, and he's been in the same boat as I am, where we've had multiple co-founders for multiple ventures. And how do you find and how do you pick a proper co-founder? Which was it was very insightful. I think there was a lot of personal stories that came out of that, talking about personal things. And keep in mind that co-founder matchmaking is so important. Even from a guy running an ecosystem, usually accelerators globally do not even invest in companies that are sole founders. They would want you to have a co-founder because there's so much to do in the beginning, or so much to do in the beginning of a new pivot. There's all the research needs to be done again, all the validation, all the customer, business development. So all of that needs to happen again, and that can't be a one-man show. Or plus you're running a current business, keep in mind, so the pivot is actually adding more. So there was a lot of very good insightful information given by Yusuf, and I don't know if you guys share that, so I'm sure you share the same agreement.
Absolutely.
The same sentiment. And I think
while going through a pivot, how you might come across situations where a particular co-founder is not best fit for the pivot that you're taking.
Sure.
That can turn nasty sometimes. You talked about those stuff as well.
Yeah.
And we moved on from there.
He really held off, though, by the way. He really held back on not talking, because I think he really wanted to talk some real nasty stuff.
Yeah, more specific.
It is real, though. Yeah.
But that
it's
struggle
a real problem, actually.
It's a real struggle, even for me not to talk about certain circumstances with people.
I cannot get thrown out of the house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's for you. You're in a different situation right now. Everything's peachy and rosy.
I'm locked out. No, well, I mean, maybe I'm making it that way because I have no other choice.
Yeah. That's true.
Don't talk ill of those who are not present, even if they're your wives and co-founders.
That's
but
correct.
From Yusuf's discussion and going on to Gary's episode, so while Yusuf had a different perspective of how things get nasty when you're going through a pivot, but then Gary was talking something about having fun while going through your pivot. So that was an interesting turn,
I think the chat with Gary was. I wish we could show people the unrecorded session, because that was so much fun. He's actually super cool to talk to. But I think, so he runs the Taco Stars, thing with it's the Techstars community, because he brought Techstars to the region, and he started this kind of community where people could not talk about shop and just blow off some steam. And he was a great fit for that episode, because I think at the end of it all, I think it really comes down to kind of finding your headspace and carving out me time and really thinking about how to actually enjoy the journey as well, because it's not just about the stress and the anxiety and the funding and the raising and the growing, but 100%. It's what am I really doing all of this for?
I think Gary did hit on a lot of points and it's not only a startup feel where the perception that startups are always are always fun, and I know a lot of corporates who have an amazing culture, who they have fun at work, they have like we just came up with this thing internally that we create a sound. How do I call this? Like a soundtrack for the week or something, or we can create, like a best hits that resonates with what happened with us at work for a week. Yeah, it's just another fun thing to do. You know what I mean? And people say, "Oh, look at them. They have sleeping pods," and it's not about the sleeping pods. It's all about the culture. It's all about you know what I mean, having fun. I know a lot of people, like even in our organization, they look forward to coming into the office because they enjoy working with the people they're working with. So,
Yeah.
and having that culture, I know that ties into the episode that we talked about culture, and so I thought Gary was spot on mentioning a lot of these. And if you're not a fun guy, don't work in a fun company. And if you're a fun guy, go work for a fun company. It's a simple, and it is true. Like you become who you work with.
True.
And it was very. I think Gary's definitely nailed that on its head when we talked about having fun and bringing that level of relaxedness to the company. People think better. Like, I make sure that people get 10 to 20% of their workday where they can start thinking how they can improve their job, where they can work better. That's the way I do things, because I feel them. You don't want to get them into the burnout phase, but they also want to get them to excel at what they're doing. And that's why performance was never an issue in any of my teams.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I kind of think about this all the time, and I look at all of the different topics that we touched on, and I think about all the people that we had on, and we're so lucky that they gave us the time. I think we're lucky that we were able to kind of carve out a concept that just kind of took shape. And I hope that the community grows. We've got a small WhatsApp group going. We've got a LinkedIn page going. We've got the YouTube channel as well. It's a lot of stuff to manage, and we're doing all of this while I'm juggling a couple of ventures, a baby. Abe, you've got like countless ventures. You've got startups that you're mentoring. Farrukh, you've got like an army of kids at home, and then your full-time gig as well. Like, I mean, I think we deserve a pat on the back for like being able to diligently take out time every Saturday, with the exception of a few here and there for whatever. But I mean, we took out the time and we did this and we got these people on, and I mean, we created something out of nothing, just based on an idea that Farrukh, you brought to the table, and it was just a cool thing. And we all kind of brought our respective kind of superpowers to the table and did what we could. Farrukh's amazing editing, and we need to talk about what we're going to do next now. Like, what's on the horizon for us? Are we continuing?
I think that's the kind of what keeps us going. I think is the fact that we're able to discuss these things out in the open, and then we're able to relate it to so many people because of our amazing guests as well. And what is going to keep us going is definitely engagement with people out there. So whoever is watching this, whoever is on our LinkedIn page or on our WhatsApp group, wherever you're coming across this video, just please comment. Please let us know how you felt about season 1, and let's talk about what's coming in season 2 as well. We are really looking forward to it. But the more we engage with real people out there, the more feedback we get, about the first season, the more relevant will it be for season 2.
Yeah.
So,
I agree 100%.
Hey, what is coming in season 2, man?
So like, honestly, we are planning to obviously get more guests, a lot more relevant topics. We've lined up a couple of topics internally, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. Comment on some of these videos. Please send us messages on LinkedIn. Most of you guys on our groups and know us personally. DM us, direct messages on LinkedIn or on Facebook or on LinkedIn as well. On WhatsApp. I keep mixing up WhatsApp and Facebook because I know they're all going to become one network very, very soon anyway. But
FaceApp Gram.
Seriously, yeah. And or suggest a topic or two. We'd love to hear what you guys are experiencing and what you'd like us to discuss. Keep in mind, as we said earlier, this is a show that started off of each other's couches. So the sky is the limit for the next season. We or even suggest certain questions or formats that you guys like to see or something. I really want to.
I think that would be a good idea, Abe. If people want us to discuss about something specific, maybe what they're going through, let's have that.
Yeah. The thing is that, and this is a message to everyone. I think you, Abe, hit this right. Like, we've got a personal community and everyone. And I mean, we're not talking to each other. We're not talking to them. We're talking to the world at large. But I think I need to say this because it's really important, because I think I realized through the course of this, I had a couple of very close friends leave the group as well, right? And I was like kind of asking myself, should I get upset? Like, we're starting something and people are leaving. Are we doing something terrible? Did we insult someone, or do we do something that is not worth their time? But in the end of it, if we're putting all this time and effort into putting something together that we think might have value, but if we're wrong, we need that feedback to know how to get this thing in a direction that can actually add value. Because the thing to focus on for, to bring it back home, is that the nucleus of this is that we are three individual people who are bringing our own perspectives and experience, but we have a shared desire to bring our energy together so that we can actually introduce and ignite some positivity and bring some direction and clarity through experts and through topics that matter but are all relevant to all of us.
Yeah.
And I asked them both, actually, like, why did you leave? One of them said, nothing new, nothing interesting. So I was like, that's interesting, because instead of giving us a chance to kind of work on something that could be interesting, that door was closed. Which then I thought, well, maybe I need to kind of, and then the other one I asked and said, don't have time or headspace for this. And I thought that was actually very insightful, because people are busy and they're dealing with a lot of stuff. So maybe growing this is not possible because people have so many priorities. But
actually, that is
what
something
can we take
that
from that?
That's something that we can talk about. I mean, how to manage all of this pressure and everything. Because I think this is a very important topic in terms of looking ahead. You've got to manage what you have and then look ahead. If people are bogged down by too much happening, I think we can add value to that. So we are coming back soon with season 2.
Yeah, we're coming back.
We're definitely coming back.
Definitely coming back.
So please feel free to share. Would like to hear a bigger audience. We might actually, an idea here or there. Hopefully, by the time we come back, we might even do it in at one of the co-working spaces. Maybe we can have maybe one time next season. We'll have
face to face.
I was actually going to say, maybe we could just do the whole thing.
Let's do that.
Who knows what the situation is like,
guys. Yeah, let's see how we can
sit with our masks and socially distance. I can spray every few minutes some alcohol in the air.
Sure,
not to drink, but to but don't.
Sounds like a great deal. So exactly. So we love you all, and let's see you soon.
Yeah, thank you very much.
It was a great time. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Farrukh. Thank you, Zohare. And
thank you.
Thank you, guys. It was great.
Yeah.
And
I just want
guys.
one suggestion, though, Abe. I think you need to work on the lighting a little bit. I mean, I had a lot of problems with the lighting through most of the season, but, I've obviously fixed that because I've got this sexy background now. And this is
That's
real.
why Abe said he's going to have another studio done for the season 2.
Yeah, I mean, Thanks, guys.
All right. Take care. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Awesome. See you around.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.